This is a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.
Whatever it is, I can handle it.
You're the one always telling me I need to find my destiny. Well, one thing's for certain, it's not here in Kansas.
You saved my life.
He's a rather extraordinary young man. Don't you think?
Hello and welcome to Smallville Freaks. I am your host, one of your hosts, Mike Pelly, joined by my co-host Jason Lamb. How are you?
Great.
Just great, sir.
Yeah, I'm just doing fine.
After this
Thanks.
episode, you're just kind of okay.
One of the best episodes of season one.
That's my point exactly. Let's just dive right into it. Lois Lane is in this. Oh, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. Some other character that's in a fat suit. Amy Adams is in this episode.
Yep.
It's pretty funny to think about. She's like literally our current Lois Lane in the cinematic universe of Superman.
Yeah. And she has met two different Supermen now in her career.
Yes. Now, Amy Adams, I know this because, you know, I'm clearly a big Superman fan. Seen many interviews with Amy Adams when she talked about Man of Steel when that came out. And she always talked about how much of a Superman fan she was. And she brought up the fact that she was in Smallville. Even talk show hosts that were interviewing her were like, "You were on Smallville. What was?" And she's just like, "I'm going to talk about that because I literally just was an eating disorder freak of the week." It's kind of like sort of an embarrassing role, but yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, but I gotta say, you know, the elephant in the room, Lois Lane, played by Amy Adams in the current film universe, is in this show as a freak of the week.
Yeah.
So basically, I want to talk about gas. Gas.
It's a problem. It's an epidemic.
Pete sure noticed.
Yeah, it's an epidemic sweeping Smallville.
So there's a lot of okay. Yes, we can go from stating what the issue is with Amy Adams. She's got an eating disorder. She wants to be thin for Lana's party. She's been drinking these kryptonite milkshakes or fruit shakes. Okay, let's talk about the fact that she has this greenhouse where they live at same as like Clark, like a barn area.
Yeah, they're like a farmer that has a greenhouse area for crops or something like that.
And meteor rocks.
Yeah.
Just in a bucket.
Using soil from
a bucket.
That contains meteor rocks.
That's what it was. So they had
12 years ago.
They were using it for soil.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. I just thought it was a bunch of meteor rocks in a bucket, and she just kept grabbing them and like mixing them with some greens and making a little shake, which by the way looked gross.
Oh yeah, and let alone the Foley that was just like this sludgy, bubbling, disgusting sound. Even when it was like off camera.
Ugh.
When it would just even be in the room, it made a disgusting sound.
And that coincides with what I'm talking about, gas.
Yeah.
Like it kept making the same sounds when she'd be walking around. She lost all the weight because of the kryptonite, and it just had that sound like the. And Pete kept looking over because they're like he's into her, and he's just like, "Are you okay?" And at one point he just hears her stomach growling and he's like, "Maybe you should go to the hospital."
It's like when he's asking if it's okay, it's like a rhetorical question because he knows like clearly if someone is making that sound, they are not okay.
No. So very, very funny. But
so it's actually like it's really fucking brutal as far as the I guess like the fat shaming of the bullies in the school. It's insane.
It was like the most extreme body shaming I had heard. It like this bully guy that comes up to her and he's making fun of Pete. First he makes fun of Pete for even talking to her. Then he makes fun of Clark for sticking up for Pete, who's talking to her. And then he throws a basketball at them, spilling her shake all over herself. And then Pete does something pretty rad. He grabs the basketball and throws it right in the bully's face.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty like warranted.
Yeah, it's I was saying this earlier when we were watching the episode that I think if the show were made today, it wouldn't be so on the nose as far as like the body shaming, because I feel like studios are like way more like self-aware about the content they're putting forth.
Well, they're
like
trying to be a little more PC,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
And so I think it's like cool that they try to address like body issues or like eating disorders or whatever, but like it's kind of like a weird, misguided way to go about it at the time. But it was like 2001, right? Like,
but yeah, that was pretty intense, the body shaming. But I feel so bad for Amy Adams' character in this entire episode. So she eventually becomes this eating beast, which she is just trying to lose some weight. She wants to go to the party and look good, and or at least be happy with how she looks. And she's drinking this kryptonite shake, and it backfires, turns her into an eating animal. And as the episode progresses, she gradually becomes more evil, like a Freak of the Week does.
Yeah,
like a meteor infected person would become. Is basically the villain.
It's more like and the animalistic side of human nature, like the human animal takes over.
Remember when she ate the first human she ate was that shit talking bully, and
right.
and she like lures him into like the closet or whatever, a secret room, and like was like, oh yeah, you like me? You think I'm all thin and pretty now? Well, what about all those fucking things you said to me? Munch.
Right.
Eats him down, and that's totally cool, and I'm down with that.
So
High five.
Yeah, it's kind of like the milder version of I Spit on Your Grave,
yes,
like revenge story.
Exactly. But then it just keeps taking over, and eventually, like, she is like, I'm gonna eat anyone, and at the end, she tries to kill herself.
Yeah.
What a tragic story.
She should have tried to like eat herself to death. That'd be like
what? What would she start with? Start with her
just
hand?
like a finger or something, here and there. Like you got nothing around, like the store's not open. Like what are you gonna do?
Yeah, true. I mean, like you could just go for a joyride and drive into a deer and eat that off the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah, she hits a deer and then just eats it raw on the side of the road, which is incredible.
That scene, when I saw this episode the first time on air back in 2001, like I was like, no, she's not going to do that. They're not going to do that. There it goes. It blew my mind back then. This was also the episode where Chloe and Lex meet for the first time.
Really?
Yeah,
that was the first.
That was the meeting.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, this is the first time that they meet, and that becomes a whole thing later on.
With Lex, he's all introduced to the Wall of Weird.
Yeah, the Wall of Weird is also Smallville's version of the X-Files,
right? And
just like the X-Files has an episode where like it burns down, eventually like the torch gets torched.
Well,
for the same reason, because they get a little too close to the secrets.
Yeah, we saw that in episode 3.
Yeah.
The football coach did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to say before we go into the drama segment was, when Lex goes to meet Dr. Hamilton, it just blew my mind that he walks right into Dr. Hamilton's like garage. And Dr. Hamilton's like, oh, are you one of the guys from those websites?
Right, yeah. Only like freaks with websites like seek me out. Like
websites.
Having a website, you're a bad person.
And it's a very broad spectrum there, sir. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. This is 2001. What was the internet like back then? Was it like still AOL dial-up?
It was still like AOL dial-up, Earthlink.
Are you from those websites?
Yeah.
It's like it just sounds like it's like pre-Google days. Like it's crazy. But
your Angel Fire page.
Yeah, your GeoCities.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the drama segment.
Okay.
Trust me, you don't want to know me the way you think you do.
Clark, that's my decision to make.
So this segment is jam-packed. It's probably why this episode of Smallville Freaks is going to be a little longer than normal, just because I got a lot of shit to say about this.
Yeah, there's so much to address in this episode.
The heat is picking up. The heat is picking up between Clark and Lana. So right off the bat, Clark makes a promise to Lana that he breaks.
That's Clark's way.
Yep, and she straight up says, "Can you please actually show up this time?"
It just calls him out. Episode 7.
Yes.
Like, you're a flake, Clark.
I can't believe that shit starts this early in the show.
Yeah.
I never realized that, and we talked about that when we were watching it. It was like we're realizing there's a lot of stuff that's like happening way earlier than we thought. Yeah, he straight up didn't show up for her birthday party at Lex Mansion, by the way.
Which is like his favorite place to show up out of nowhere, uninvited.
Exactly. It's like, how could you resist?
How'd you get past security, Clark?
The door was open.
Right.
Which he straight up does in this episode. We'll get to that in the drinking game.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Clark does something in this episode that he did in the very first one, which we both equally thought was creepy. Just straight up spying on Lana and Whitney with his telescope.
And we've commented on this in previous podcasts, for sure, yeah.
But he does it again here, and there's literally a close-up of his face while he's looking at them, and he's like, boo.
Well, yeah, I counted that as brooding.
That's good.
Also, Chloe calls him out on it because she shows up, and that's the scene we're talking about where, she, like, don't you ever knock? She's like, oh, did you get your morning Lana fix?
Oh, that line.
Such a good...
I wrote that down too. And that's immediately followed by it's a barn, Clark. And that's also Chloe just being jealous again. She does that a lot in this episode when she's just like, oh, yeah, Lana. Great. And Clark's also really passive-aggressive in this episode.
How so?
Not passive-aggressive, he's just passive in the sense that whenever Lana brings up Whitney, like he goes, oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah, I gotta go. Like, see ya. Oh,
yeah, he's
that's
like,
cool.
Oh, yeah, you two have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great that you guys are a couple.
Well, it's another episode where they say just friends, which I think happens like 3 times in this episode.
Yeah.
Like he's in denial about what their relationship is developing into.
She, which brings me to the fact that he didn't show up to her birthday party, but she was outside the entire time alone. Lex has to come out and be like, this is your party. Are you just out here, quote, getting some air?
Right.
Or are you missing a certain someone?
Yeah.
And she's just like, go away. And she's clearly boo-booing about Clark not being there.
Yeah.
Now, remind me, she has a boyfriend that we have come to expect she actually cares for.
Which I don't understand why, because at every step of the way, he's like an asshole, like a selfish prick.
But she's like, the most popular girl in school, the cheerleader, and all the times we've seen them together, she's so like into their relationship. However, she's got this like thing now. This is the first time in all the episodes where she's clearly got a thing for Clark.
Right.
Like clearly. She literally waited outside of her party, not hung out with anybody, waiting for him to show up.
Yeah, and he was the VIP.
Right. So he goes to her house later, throws rocks at her fucking window, and like she's like agrees to go to a little fake drive-in with him.
His apology / gift at the end of the evening was to set up a fake drive-in scene because it reminds her of her parents.
Yeah,
which she loves bringing up.
God damn it, her favorite.
And I was saying that like, so they like, it's just like, oh, it's a cute thing. Like he makes popcorn and like puts it in like a movie theater bucket and all this stuff to like recreate it. But I like, and then nothing happens. Like it's like platonic. They're just friends, right?
Yeah.
But like I'm thinking about like the hormones you would have as a teenager in high school if you were setting up like a drive-in movie with a person you were mildly attracted to. You would absolutely make out, especially if this person went out of their way to like set up this like really sentimental.
That is
like,
literally an invitation to, hey, let's go make out.
Yeah, hey, let's go make, and they don't, which is like a really unrealistic way
and
to
they
think
play
about
off,
it.
Yeah, they play it off like, okay, if they were in that car, as close as they were, watching the Looney Tunes and a little date night, and you're Whitney, and you saw that. What would you think?
Yeah, there's no way to interpret that as anything but romantic, like and a
like,
threat to your
like,
relationship.
This is straight up a relationship.
Yeah, and also like if you were Lana and Whitney after his like football tryout thing that he was supposedly at, which is why he couldn't make it to her party, her birthday party of all things.
Yeah.
If he asks like what you did last night, do you say, "Oh, Clark put on a movie for me"? And we watched it alone in his truck at his farm.
At his farm.
Like, in no reality would that ever be okay. And so we have to assume that she just didn't say anything to him.
Absolutely not. I'm sure she also didn't tell him that she was waiting for him during her entire birthday party alone outside.
Yeah.
Craziness. So let's move on to the drinking game segment.
All right.
The party can officially begin. The Luthors are here.
Yeah, so the drinking game, it starts, the first one on our list is hospital scenes. I don't remember there being any.
None yet.
Right.
Yeah.
The hospital
They reference the hospital.
The hospital's mentioned.
Because the bully kid ends up having to go to the hospital in a coma, but they never show it.
There's a second reference where Pete asks if he needs to take Amy Adams to the hospital because her gas is getting a little
crazy. It's a set
crazy.
piece that'll definitely become more important later on.
Yeah.
But nothing thus far.
No one says father or son?
No, they do.
Oh, really?
Twice. Yeah. One time somebody says son and one time somebody says father. There's multiple times where people say dad, but I'm going to say 2 counts.
2 counts on
father
that.
or son.
Chloe crying?
Not this one.
Shirtless Clark.
No shirtless Clark.
Is Clark shirtless?
Nope.
But I'll bet glass shatters.
It shatters 3 times.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much a given. I think every episode of Smallville is going to have glass shattering.
Yeah. A gas, as you're talking about, exploding.
Gas exploding. Foreshadowing? Does that happen?
Not really. No, not for this one, I'd say.
There was one instance that I thought it might have been a foreshadow. Was Clark says, "Don't worry, Alana. It's not like I have to save you from a burning building."
Yeah, but that's just more like an inside joke for people that are into Superman.
Does any of the Luthors drink a cocktail?
Oh God, I don't know. I didn't.
I saw Lex drinking water again.
Yeah, he was drinking water, like whatever that like blue bottled water, which I'm pretty sure was like a brand at the time,
maybe
in like the early 2000s that was like really popular.
Label.
Yeah.
Does Clark lie?
Yes, he lies a total of 3 times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you remember the instances?
One of them was when he was lying about his superpowers when he didn't realize that Lana was in the room and he was bragging about, hammering a post into bedrock or whatever. Like, I was like, oh, I had a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
But there's other times, where
I mean, it's gonna be pretty heavy here on out with the lying.
Yeah, he like breaks the lock to get into the examination room and like the animal control place.
Oh, it's unlocked, Chloe.
I can't remember what the third one is now, but yeah.
But it happened. Does Clark brood at all?
I'd say he does, and that's when he's like looking through his like telescope. But if you really count it, because I don't know how much time it takes to really be considered brooding, but a total of 3 times, and they all involve Whitney and Lana.
Yeah. It's a brooding central when it comes to the two of them. Lana, I'm sure she brought up her parents
twice.
Nice.
Yes.
And then what about the word abilities?
Nope. Never comes up.
God damn it. I'm really starting to think my rules suck here.
Clark shows up out of nowhere? No.
Not once?
Not once. He always has a purpose for being wherever he is.
All right, great. Well, that's the drinking game.
No, it's not. Because the 13th rule, unless we rewrite
we had an addendum, didn't we?
My addendum is every time they say just friends. And this I had an older version of my Smallville drinking game.
Okay.
And this doesn't become valid after a while, so I think we'll have to do a few different rewrites of this.
Maybe per season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for this one, it's happened in many episodes previously too, even though we're only up to 7, when they say just friends for the Clark and Lana relationship, which happens a total of 3 times in this episode.
Oh.
So
that's a good one, then.
Let me tally up the final count here. 15. 15 drinks is what you would be taking. So
probably not hard alcohol.
No hard A. Yep. Definitely go for the wine or the beer.
Make it a sipper.
Take it slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know. Just watching Amy Adams down all of that food, just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like if I was just drinking booze and watching that, I
think that was literally the point where we were eating Thai food and I put my food down. It was like when they were.
I gotta take a second here.
When she's in the cafeteria and is eating 6 meals.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh,
Jesus Christ. Well, there you go. Well, we'll maybe have a new list of rules as we progress on the show. But let's move on to Geek Lore.
Okay.
This is Smallville. Meteor freaks, alien ships, cryptic symbols. Someone has to protect the world.
Let's talk about the introduction of Dr. Emil Hamilton.
Well, just Dr. Hamilton in this episode. They never say Emil.
That's true.
And the reason why we have to bring that up is why? Because we see 2 of them in the show.
There are definitely 2 Dr. Hamiltons in this, as there are supposedly 2 Jimmy Olsens, which comes a lot later, but they kind of fuck up a little bit in their continuity, and I think it's a new team of writers and producers, et cetera, that made this happen. But Dr. Emil Hamilton is a character from the Superman comics who was created by Marv Wolfman, who reinvented the Teen Titans in I think the late 70s, early 80s, wrote Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is a huge thing that spans pretty much all forms of DC media, whether that be comics or TV or movies. He has a huge impact on that.
Yeah.
And we also see Hamilton. We see 2 Hamiltons in Smallville.
Yes.
You were saying that he's in the 90s Superboy show.
Yes. He's in the 90s Superboy show, and he also is in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. He becomes Clark's go-to guy whenever he would run into problems. I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of how Dr. Hamilton is for me, because I read less of the comics and watched more TV and movies. And Dr. Hamilton was a character that in the shows I watched and even in Man of Steel, is the kind of answer guy.
Yeah.
He's just a kind of all-around doctor that's not technically the doctor of anything. He's just a scientist doctor.
Yeah, and in this he's specifically a meteorologist, which they state,
right.
But he also later on in the season does all these meteor rock experiments. And those are these weird chemical and physics experiments, which you would not see normally. I think a meteorologist perform.
Right, but in this one, they give a little backstory. He was kicked out of from teaching at this university because he had a teacher relationship.
Oh, that was deemed inappropriate, and they imply that he's basically a sexual predator.
Right.
Which is such a weird take on this character.
So he went and got obsessed with the meteor shower that happened in Smallville.
Yeah. They also, in this Geek Lore, explain how, they show it in the first episode, but Lex actually explains his baldness. He gets it from the meteor shower. A new development that we see in this show, as far as the character across all media is concerned, is he has a really extremely high white blood cell count, and he never gets sick.
Right.
Which I don't think we've ever seen that in the comics before.
I think
it's like a new thing.
Exclusive to Smallville.
Yeah. So it's interesting because he basically gets like a superpower.
Yeah.
From
that he can't get sick.
So he loses his hair, but he gains the ability to never get sick.
Right.
Yeah. So that pretty much rounds up geek lore.
Let's. You want to go into crew spotlight?
Let's move into crew spotlight.
Let's cruise control right into the crew spotlight.
I'm to help create the look of the show, to tell the story visually.
So, interesting enough that we were talking about Dr. Hamilton, as my crew spotlight for this episode is Joe Morton, who plays Dr. Hamilton.
Ah, yes, classic.
And the first
great.
time I've seen this actor was when he plays Miles Dyson in Terminator 2. The person who creates Skynet and is the lead researcher on like the chip and the arm that they find in the factory.
He's so amazing in that movie.
Yeah, no.
That
like death scene is incredible.
It's amazing acting in that.
He's
I'm
so
surprised
good.
he never got escalated to anything like that much bigger than that movie.
I feel like no matter what this actor is in, he brings he's in a way he's like sort of over the top. Like,
right.
He is acting,
but he's also just himself too.
He's acting like way more serious about his role than probably anybody else. Like he's like so dedicated to being in character. You know, he's like a super deep like method actor, I'd say. Mm-hmm. He's in a lot of other like genre shows. So like most recently what I saw him in was Eureka. Apparently he has a role in Batman versus Superman, which I don't remember.
I don't recall him in that movie.
Yeah, I don't recall him in it, but apparently he's in it. He was in episodes of The X-Files. He's been in like a ton of
a lot of TV, dude. He is like a TV maniac.
Yeah, and I haven't looked it up, but I think that he's got to be from Canada, from considering like all the things that he's been in. He was in American Gangster, and he's in Speed, and just like a bunch of this stuff. So I think it's like good to point
him out. Yeah, and just lastly, there's one other guy. Didn't catch his name, but he plays Amy Adams' father in this episode.
Oh, and he's also like in X-Files and Millennium, and he plays like an FBI agent. He's played a Freak of the Week. He's like done so much.
He's like Canadian celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. A great episode, I thought.
I think it's one of the better episodes of the season.
And
sure.
What's interesting about it is that I remember just thinking of this episode as whatever. Like when I first saw it, maybe the second time I saw this episode, when I watched it again, I was like, oh, it's a throwaway filler. But no, there's some pretty great stuff, and also setting up the Dr. Hamilton that we're going to see in the next episode. So that wraps up
Craving,
Smallville Season 1, Episode 7. Jason Lamb, where can people find you on social network?
Jason_Lamb on Twitter, and JTL_Hell.
Nice.
On Instagram.
On Instagram?
Yes.
I can be found on all the platforms at Mike Pelly, where Jason and Mike at the Smallville Freaks will join you again for Episode 8, Jitters. Thank you very much. Catch you then.
This has been a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it. Fuck it.